This is the morning of the 20th November. A clip put up by MS Now. Cover up? Question mark. New report on Trump's dirty tricks. Plan to keep Epstein files buried. Let's have a listen to this. Plays for 11 and a half minutes.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We are waiting tonight. The bill, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, is on Donald Trump's desk. It is ready to be signed into law after almost every Republican on Capitol Hill voted to advance it against Trump's wishes. Even House Speaker Mike Johnson ultimately voted to force the DOJ to release the Epstein files after, of course, he spent months using every procedural trick in the book to block that effort on Trump's behalf. Now, it seems Johnson expected his counterpart in the Senate, Republican Majority Leader John Thune, to grind the bill down to a halt this week with a lengthy markup process and, crucially, amendments. That didn't happen. The opposite happened. In fact, the Senate passed it with unanimous consent, and Johnson is still mad about that.
I'm deeply disappointed in this outcome. I think I've been at the state dinner. I don't know. I was just told that Chuck Schumer rushed it to the floor and put it out there preemptively. It needed amendments. I just spoke to the president about that. We'll see what happens.
Why would Johnson be disappointed in the outcome?
Do you think he may veto it? You say you spoke to the president?
I'm not saying that.
Is he supportive of it in its current form?
We both have concerns about it, so we'll see.
Does the president have concerns about the Epstein files coming out? Really? We probably don't need Mike Johnson to tell you that. Trump is widely expected to sign this bill, although who knows? And it's not, of course, because he's had some change of heart. It's because if he did veto it, his own party would likely help to override him. This battle is lost. But as for the war, now comes the next phase of the apparent cover-up. Much of this part will rest with none other than Attorney General Pam Bondi, who will have 30 days to release those files after the Epstein bill becomes law. Files that Bondi and the DOJ claimed basically didn't exist in a 2-page memo last summer, or files that they say were of no public relevance. That memo said there would be no more investigations or releases of information on Epstein. Nothing to see here.
Our memo on Epstein clearly points out that there was no client list. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. Our memo speaks for itself, and we'll get back to you on anything else. Nothing about Epstein. I'm not going to talk about Epstein.
Well, that was then. Today, Bondi did a 180, saying the government was opening investigation after all. In doing so, she gave a hint of how the new chapter of this apparent cover-up will work from here.
What changed since then that you launched this investigation?
Information that has come for information. There's information new information, additional information, and again, we will continue to follow the law, to investigate any leads.
Would you limit the new investigation to just those named persons that the president talked about, or is this a broad, open-ended investigation?
I would refer to the Deputy Attorney General's post that he put out on X, and we're not going to say anything else on that because now it is a pending investigation in the Southern District of New York.
I mean, the number 2 of the Department of Justice tweeted. So there you have it. It's a classic, well, there's an active investigation, can't talk about it. I mean, we've been watching politicians run that play for literally generations. But you have to ask, what active investigation exactly? Oh, right, the one that Donald Trump ordered up on social media to investigate only Democrats mentioned in the Epstein files released so far. A pending investigation Bondi can now cite as a reason to keep the public in the dark over the Epstein files, to avoid releasing at least some of them. That's after she told the public for months there was no one left to investigate, although previous to that, she said they had this bombshell file she was going to release. So that's how the Epstein cover-up will work, apparently. An investigation run by a Department of Justice that has been completely lawless and dishonest throughout this administration, especially when it comes to Epstein and his convicted accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. That appears to be the plan anyway. The question now is whether it will really work to Trump's advantage. He is a lame duck president with falling approval numbers. I mean, every day brings some new low point in some poll. His party and his base are erupting in infighting that we really haven't seen before at this point. There's increasingly only one issue where they're united these days, and that's releasing the Epstein files. Aswin Supsang, senior political correspondent for Zateo. Lisa Rubin's a senior legal reporter at MS Now, and they both join me now. Lisa, I have you here right now. So how do you understand what the Attorney General and DOJ are going to do if and when this bill gets signed into law tonight?
Well, I think one of the things that the Attorney General is going to do is determine what she is going to withhold and what she is going to redact, because the Epstein bill comes in three parts. First part gives you a number of categories of documents that are compelled to be released by Congress under the bill. But the second category is all of the exceptions to that the Attorney General and her sole discretion can rely upon in either redacting or withholding information. And as you just noted, they sort of reverse engineered an investigation, it appears, because one of those exceptions is where it would interfere with or compromise an active ongoing investigation or prosecution. And so you have to ask yourself, is there really new information here that would justify a new investigation? Or did somebody smart read the text of the bill and realize that the out that they have always wanted was built into this bill as a feature, not a bug?
There's a mention of what the Deputy Attorney General posted on X. I'm going to ask you that in a second. I want to ask Swin this first. So interestingly tonight, Swin, they called a lid on the press pool, the White House press pool, which means no more official business, no more public events, which is notable because he's got the bill and could sign it into law. Donald Trump tends to like to do these things in public. But I'm reading from your reporting here. On Tuesday afternoon, the president suffered a blow to his ego and to his aura of personality cult, no doubt. The resistance to Trump's agenda, his narrative, is having an effect, which is why he and people will resort to an increasingly blatant array of dirty tricks to protect their man in Washington and Mar-a-Lago. How do you think this goes next?
Patricia,
Another ad popped up.
Well, the Trump-Epstein cover-up will continue until morale improves. Look, this is a government that is built almost entirely on bad faith in policy and practice, and this is no different here. Look, just to dig in on the point that you guys were talking about earlier, we don't have to speculate. If you talk to senior Trump administration officials, they will tell you, whether privately or otherwise, if you ask them, look, do Trump, Pam Bondi, and the DOJ, is the investigation that the president ordered up, they're now doing, is this a way that, you can keep certain files that Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel very much do not want to be released to Congress or the American people under lock and key? They will say words like, of course. This is something they have been talking about for days, if not weeks, in terms of like a failsafe. Look, Trump expended a ton of political capital and lost when he tried to crush this vote in the House, and then it went on to the Senate, and they, of course, passed it. And him and his DOJ and Pam Bondi have built in there, and this is by design, a escape hatch and a plan B that is a much better insurance policy than Mike Johnson could ever possibly give them.
When Bondi was, we were all cracking up today at the information, information, the habada. But then at one point she says, I'll refer you, again, I got to say, the thing about this is, under ordinary procedure, like this is how all Department of Justice is, we don't comment on ongoing investigation. Right. These folks have completely blown that up. They talk about anything whenever they want. They
order investigations.
They order investigations, and then they talk about the ones they've ordered. Right. So what was she referring to when she said Todd Blanche?
I'm going to tell you what I think she was referring to. 6 days ago, Todd Blanche got into a Twitter war of sorts, or an X war, with George Conway, the conservative legal commentator, who was criticizing his questioning of Glenn Maxwell on the basis of the documents that were released last week by House Oversight, saying that those documents undermined the transcribed interview that Todd Blanche took.
And basically saying, like, how could you
rely on that?
And your questioning was so incompetent because you didn't ask about all these things that are in this.
Correct. And here's the response. George, you've never been confused for a trial lawyer, and these kind of posts explain why. And then beyond the insult, when I interviewed Maxwell, law enforcement didn't have the materials Epstein's estate hid for years and only just provided to Congress. What he seems to be saying in that is, I didn't have that information because it's not available to the Department of Justice. And time will tell whether that is a good faith statement or not. But that appears to be what Pam Bondi was referring to when she's talking about the Deputy Attorney General's ex post.
We should note that the Epstein estate countered that and said we were never requested for this. We didn't hide anything. We turn over anything as soon as we need it. You know, Swin, I was thinking about when Lisa was talking about the returns. Every journalist, I think, has had this experience, or many have, and if you haven't had it personally, you have a colleague, of FOIAing something, and then sometimes you get sued, sometimes they delay, but sometimes they say, oh, here, and you get it, and you're like, great, and it's just like blacked out, like some sort of sick joke. And I keep thinking about that moment as we see what they're going to do with this law that now compels them to disclose.
They have practically openly signaled that that is what they are going to do, or at least some version of it. Trump himself, when he lied that he had previously said that I'm okay, I don't care, the House can vote to pass this thing this week, he built into that Truth Social post, we will hand over whatever we are legally required to do, whatever they are legally allowed to have. Trump and his administration have a vastly different definition of the law than a lot of other normal-brained people on this planet. If you talk to people or some individuals who planned this from the onset during the transition, I'll never forget the things that one of them said to me when I asked them, what is the operating legal principle of the second Trump administration? And they said, what are you going to do about it? That is the legal principle they were working with, the raw power of they control the Justice Department, they control the White House, they are going to decide what Donald Trump does or does not want the American people to see, and you're going to have to live with that. That is the stance they're taking, whatever public relations and face-saving Donald Trump is engaged in right now.
What they're going to do is they're going to say that there's ongoing investigations, and because of that, we can't release the documents. The only salvation the American people have is Epstein's estate. If they can come up with those photographs or other incriminating evidence against this full-blown pedophile. I'll attach the link. Let me know what you think. And thanks for listening.